I'm Harry Binswanger, the HB in question, and I'm joined by Nikos Soteropoulos, who is coming to you from Athens. Is that correct?
Somewhere in the wider vicinity in the Balkans, yes.
But from the civilization's cradle of Greece to the cyberspace, which is now the capital of the known universe. And we're discussing today a topic of immense, ultimate importance to you as an individual and to social political policy and history. Topic is the struggle of egoism versus altruism. I'm going to give you Ayn Rand's demolition of altruism, and it's my view as well. I'm not just quoting somebody else. This is what speaks to me in the very fiber of my being and always has. So, in logic, if our topic is Ayn Rand versus altruism, we need to say, who is Ayn Rand and what is altruism? Ayn Rand is probably familiar to everybody listening to this, but in case not, she's the author of Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead, and the creator of the philosophy of objectivism, which is espoused in 5 or 6 nonfiction books, including The Virtue of Selfishness, not the virtue of selflessness, but the virtue of selfishness. And the struggle between selfishness and selflessness is the topic of today's show. What is altruism? That is, who is Ayn Rand? What is altruism? Altruism is a moral theory. It's a moral theory that holds that the good is service to the needs of others. Ayn Rand's position and mine is that this doctrine is evil, that it's the essence of immorality, that there is nothing blacker in human history than the idea that the good is service to the needs of others. It lies behind communism, socialism, fascism, and in its religious form, theocracy. Religions have always taught altruism. There's no religion that says be selfish and pursue your own well-being on this planet. It's always deny yourself for others, deny yourself for God, serve, obey, kneel. Now, you might have an objection here, the way I've set it up. Do people really mean by altruism service to others' needs? That the reason for living is to be a selfless, obedient robot helping others? I mean, altruism is popularly thought, isn't it, Nikos, to be something much milder than that.
Yes, usually it's toned down. It's something like you have some concern for yourself, but mostly you have concern for others. Or mostly the usual way that they can sneak altruism as into polite society and among civilized people is that look, altruism means you are kind, you are benevolent, you care about others. You take a grandma by the hand and you help her cross the street. You love your children, you love your friends, and whenever there's an emergency, let's say in Haiti, you also don't want to see the children in Haiti dying and suffering. This is usually how altruism is sold. Or for example, in sports, they say if a team, the players are team players and they like to pass the ball till you find the best opportunity to shoot, then this team is a team of altruists. It's an altruistic team. So it's another word of saying a team player. An altruist is a team player.
That's a good statement. You almost convinced me. But in epistemology and Ayn Rand has a unique and rational theory of epistemology, the theory of knowledge, we understand the concepts are not given by God. They are not carved into the side of mountains. They are made up by human beings. So the concept of altruism, as you described it, being a team player, helping the grandmother across the street, not, some people often say not taking more than your fair share, being kind, being benevolent, being a good sport, looking after people you care about. All those things are not fundamentally different from egoism. The egoist will do all those things in the proper circumstance. So concepts have to be formed on the basis of fundamental differences. You form them. You endorse the concepts you use. And by concepts, I mean that which is named by words, like altruism, which incidentally means otherism. Alter in Latin is otherism. And it was made up in the 19th century by Auguste Comte, the French philosopher. And it's the culmination of the Sermon on the Mount and a long tradition of self-sacrifice, service, looking down on yourself, not advancing your own interests, but subordinating yourself to others. Now, that's a fundamental alternative. Do I live for myself or do I live as the moral slave of others? Is the purpose of my life to live or is it to serve? That's a fundamental. What is not a fundamental is, am I a team player or not? Do I help grandmas across the street? Am I nice to people? Do I care to see people suffering needlessly? The egoists have that same position. And altruists don't really hold it, because when people suffer, millions of them, under an altruist regime like Soviet Russia, they don't damn it, they praise it. So it's not a fundamental alternative, and concepts have to be formed on the basis of fundamental alternatives. You can't form the concept gray, light gray, and dark gray before you form the concept black and white. Gray is a mixture of black and white. So in the same way you couldn't make the basic issue of ethics, are you in favor of redheads or not in favor of redheads? Are you in favor of Republicans or are you in favor of Democrats? Are you here to take care of the ants or not, as in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? The fundamental of morality has to be why you act, the purpose of your actions. Morality concerns actions. It says, do this, don't do that. And you are the person who acts. So there's a fundamental alternative between moral codes that put the agent at the center as the beneficiary of his own actions, and those who put non-agents, the person who's not acting, as the center of and beneficiary of its moral code. That's a fundamental. Now that's epistemology, so that is a little bit harder to take in, and I have a tactical response that doesn't require you to understand about concepts having to be formed on the basis of fundamentals. For this conversation, let's stipulate there's such a thing as living to serve the needs of others. The good is a service to others' needs is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a view expressed in the Bible, expressed in from each according to his ability, to each according to his need, Karl Marx, that holds You should sacrifice to others. Yeah, if you do something for yourself, okay, maybe you have to do that, but that's not where morality lies. This is the view that underlies hatred for billionaires, the rhetoric against billionaires, and the reverence for Mother Teresa. So there's certainly a lot of people who say Mother Teresa is a moral hero. And Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Thomas Edison and all the people who created great things, they are not. They are not moral heroes. Maybe you despise them, maybe you damn them, or maybe you just say, well, that's just self-interest. That's not morality. Morality is Mother Teresa. She went and washed the feet of the poor. Now, on Ayn Rand's morality, that is throwing away your life, your most precious possession. So that is not a virtue. That is a vice to live as Mother Teresa. So let's stipulate that there is this view. You don't have to call it altruism right now. Just call it the need worshiping view, the me last view. Others first, me last. So what's wrong with that? Why not say that the good is to live for others, not yourself? Well, the first thing, and we have to go back to epistemology here, the burden of proof is on he who makes the assertion. Why is that the good? And Ayn Rand, in a speech in Yale, at Yale in 1961, said exactly that. And I'm just going to quote from this because this is like a slap in the face. Now, there is one word, a single word, which can blast the morality of altruism out of existence and which it cannot withstand. The word why. Why must man live for the sake of others? Why must he be a sacrificial animal? Why is that the good? There's no earthly reason for it. And ladies and gentlemen, in the whole history of philosophy, no earthly reason has ever been given. I've had this conversation with people time and time again. You have to sacrifice for the most vulnerable among us. You have to pay taxes to support them. Why? Well, because that is our responsibility as moral agents on this planet. Why? Well, I mean, everybody senses that that's the good. I don't. Well, then I can't talk to you, they say. Nobody has ever given a reason. You know, people have given, philosophers have given reasons for all kinds of crazy things, like motion doesn't exist, or stasis doesn't exist, stability doesn't exist, or we can't perceive reality. But no one has given even a bad argument for altruism because it's insane. Now, again, by altruism, I mean the doctrine that if you do something for yourself, that's either neutral or bad. If you do something for others, that's good. So Ayn Rand asks, if the sensation of eating a cake is a moral indulgence for you, why does it become a goal to be achieved in the stomach of someone else? There isn't any answer to that.
Harry, shall I pose some more questions
Yeah.
for some practical, let's say, layman's objections to altruism? If the pinnacle of morality, let's say, is to die for something bigger than myself, let's say die for my country, If I die for my country, there is still some element of selfishness. Let's say it's my country. If altruism is deed is the proper code of what is the good in life, shouldn't I actually try to die for my enemies? So not
Yes.
for my country, for my enemy. Then I'm a bigger altruism. Here's
Then you're
another
a bigger
question.
altruist.
Here's another question. Who exactly should I sacrifice for? Because, I mean, there are many options out there who are calling for my sacrifice. There are the hungry people in Ethiopia. There are maybe non human beings. There are the polar bears. Maybe they're the unborn polar bears in Antarctica. My mother wants me to sacrifice, my father, my neighbor. So if I wake up one morning and I say, look, today I'm going to practice perfectly the proper morality. Today I'm going to be a perfect altruism. Notice that I will not even be able to get out of my bed. I will be completely frozen. And what usually happens there is that altruism needs a Führer, an authoritarian figure who will tell you who should sacrifice to whom. Because otherwise, you're in the middle of nowhere in an ocean of possible uh, altruistic actions, and you're just frozen, paralyzed, not knowing what to do. And you literally stand there, not living, expecting to figure out how somehow you'll know what will be the good action that you should do that day.
Well, that's true. That's one of the criticisms Ayn Rand makes. It doesn't give you any actual guidance. The whole purpose of morality is to guide your choices. Say, go this way, not that way. But altruism doesn't do that. It just says, don't act selfishly. Act to help somebody else. Now, then that raises the question, if I'm acting for you and that makes me good, then don't you have to refuse the gift or the sacrifice and sacrifice yourself to me so you can be good? If it's selfish to get and good to give, every time you give, somebody has to take. So it's more blessed to give than to receive. Every giving implies a receiving. You can't give if there isn't a receiver. So do we just do for each other what we would do for ourselves? I make that cake, give it to you. You make a cake and give it to me. Surely that's senseless. And the altruists have an answer, and it's even uglier. The answer is no, you don't just exchange with somebody who has a value that you want and he gets what he wants from you. That's selfish trait. What you have to serve is those who lack value, those who have nothing to offer you, those in need. So, as Ayn Rand says it, this is the veneration and rewarding of the absence, of the lack of something, of the need of something because you have not fulfilled your requirements of survival on your own. So somebody else is going to live for you so you don't have to live because you have nothing. This is the worship of the zero. And she says that it means that altruism is the morality of death. The total sacrifice that would be the total virtue would be to kill yourself. Let your body parts be eaten by those who are hungry. So if you live, it's by cheating on the morality of altruism. And you talked about the psychology, Nikos, the motivation. You couldn't get out of bed, not just because you don't know what to do, but because you have no desire to do it. And Mother Teresa wrote confessions in her diary that she felt God had deserted her and she didn't want to do what she was doing. Motivation is selfish. Motivation is what you want to get out of what you're doing. And yeah, it's true you shouldn't get what you want at the expense of others by taking it from them. They have rights, but they don't own you. You are living for your own sake. That's Ayn Rand's philosophy. She calls hers the morality of life. That's the deepest answer to what's wrong with altruism. She was asked on, I think, the Phil Donahue show, what is wrong with altruism? And she said, what's wrong with suicide? Altruism says, find the absence of values and give it. Give what you have to it. Work for it to bring it up to some level of equality. Egalitarianism comes out of this. So the worship of need gets around that problem. Well, I'm making a cake and giving it to you, and you're making a cake and giving it to me. We might as well do it for ourselves. No, if you can't make a cake and won't make a cake, then I have to give it to you. But if you can, then you're not, if you're able, you're not worthy. From each, punish ability, from each according to his ability, to each, rewarding need, the absence of value. So that's her deepest criticism of it. And it's why she says that there's no reason for it. And if you put it into practice, it's the morality of death.
Let's try actually to put it into practice, Harry, and give some examples. So, for me, the biggest triumph of altruism, and also a sign that it is doing the work of the devil, is that people, bad people, use it not as a coherent morality, because it cannot be practiced, and we'll see why, but as a substitute for morality. What do I mean? So, altruism does not ask, what should one do in life? In other words, what goals should you have? What dreams would you have? What values should you pursue? But it asks the default question, who benefits from my actions? And if the answer is, it wasn't me, then whether you're a bum, whether you're a horrible person, whether you're someone who has never achieved something and will never achieve something, you can say, I've done nothing, I've failed in everything, and therefore I am good. It gives you a trump card, an out of jail card. It gives an out of jail card to actually every criminal. Because this definition of altruism, look, I didn't benefit from my actions, therefore you can't blame me, I am good. See how this can apply, for example, to Hitler. Hitler can say, I was always a bachelor without a private life. I gave everything for Germany. I went to prison for Germany. I wrecked my nerves for Germany. I destroyed my stomach from Germany. And at the end of the day, I died, all in the service of Germany. Therefore, no one can judge me. Or remember that person in Atlas Shrugged, Eugene Lawson. I think he says at some point, Miss Taggart, I am the person who never made a single dollar in profit. And he considers that this automatically gives him some praise. So here you have altruism giving a moral coverage, a moral sanction, as we would say, to people who actually have not achieved anything. And one more point, Harry. They will say, oh, altruism means brotherhood. If we really think about it, altruism will only create a dog-eat-dog world where every single person is a possible threat. Because here's one example from people's everyday life. Let's say someone is on the way to an important meeting. Let's say they have a date with a person they are in love with. If you are a true altruist, you worry that till I go there, I might see someone who is in need. Or what if I see a homeless beggar who is high on drugs? I will have to help him. Or what if I hear on the radio that there's a war going on in Yemen? I need to make then a U-turn and go find the closest charity and see how I can help. So if you are under the mindset of altruism, every single person out there is a potential threat. Because every single person can claim your time, your happiness, the moment that you consider this is my moment, I'm going to spend a beautiful evening. Now every single person can take a bite out of your time. Just try to imagine what this does to your soul or to your sense of benevolence. This means that every single person, you view them as go away, leave me alone. It's please don't claim what is actually yours. And nothing is yours by right in this world. Everything is up for grabs. There are no boundaries among people. And I think Nathaniel Branden, in one of the essays of the early days when he was writing about it, he called it an amoral jungle, where everyone is a zero, everyone is a beast of burden. But if everyone is a zero and everyone is a beast of burden, why should you help them? Why? You are a zero, everyone is a zero. It is actually the elimination of even the notion of the good. Altruism means you're all zeros and you're in this primordial jungle situation, figure it out.
Yeah, I'm afraid that's right. And the history of altruist societies is not a history of friendship and camaraderie. It's a history of fear and betrayal and sabotage and hiding. The opening of We the Living, Ayn Rand's novel about conditions in the Soviet Union shortly after it was formed, someone is riding on the train and this person has a potato. So she goes into the restroom to eat her potato because she doesn't want to eat it in front of other people who would say, "How come you've got a potato when we have none?" That's the kind of human relationships that you have under altruism. And if you could reach this state, the ideal of being a valueless, not caring vegetable, waiting to be cooked and eaten, then you are not able to have any kind of kindness. You don't care about that grandmother crossing the street. You're not a team player. You are you're like Claude or Chat GPT. You're there to serve. And although they are sort of polite in form, they are not conscious. A conscious being who faces the alternative of life or death either chooses life and therefore needs to know how to live it, or chooses not to live, in which case he doesn't even need morality. Morality presupposes the desire to live. If you don't want to live, you don't have any incentive to be moral, and morality has nothing to say to you. Kill yourself, let yourself die. Then you'll be beyond the realm of morality. So the premise of morality, as Ayn Rand showed, is that you choose to live. You choose to acquire virtues in order to gain values, in order to achieve goals, in order to enjoy them. And that is what altruism is against. So you see now why I say that defining altruism as being nice to people and being a team player misses the whole fundamental issue. Do you want to live? Do you choose to live? Life is a process of action, of self-generated action to achieve values that have meaning for you. Life is not a process of simply doing things for others that will starve you and you'll die. Life is self-sustaining action. Do you want to achieve things that advance your existence, or do you give up? That's the fundamental question of morality, and that's a level that altruists never, I shouldn't say altruists, contemporary thinkers never get to that level. Ayn Rand's thought is so much more fundamental. I just want to end with that view of what is going on here. So on the one hand, you have my mother who said, "Harry, life is with people. You can't think of yourself all the time. You. That's all you think about. You're selfish." So on one hand, there's that kind of stupid manipulative mother's complaint to its child, which is backed by nothing intellectual. And that's responsible for Soviet Russia and Hitler, who said he was an altruist, that it was the ideal, and every evil in the world. And on the other hand, you have a thinker who says concepts are formed and they have to be formed on the basis of fundamentals, or else they sabotage your thinking, and explains what a fundamental is, and reduces morality to a choice of values, analyzes values in terms of an alternative, and says the basic alternative is life versus death. Life is self-sustaining action. Death is either not sustaining action or stillness, and points out all the contradictions in altruism. Now, that is so much beyond the ken of not just my mother, but of every goddamn ethical philosopher in the universities, with the exception of the one or two objectivists who are in the universities. Philosophy has committed suicide. In the past, there were people capable of dealing with the issues of fundamentals the way Ayn Rand did, but no more. So the ending point is, for me, that is the conclusion I want you to draw, is not just that self-sacrifice has no standing whatsoever, not just it's a morality of death, but it took a genius to point out all the way down the basis of morality and why altruism is suicide.
Three questions for the end, Harry, and these are genuine questions. They're not devil's advocate. So let's say we had here a university professor who is, let's say, a devoted altruist, or a Christian priest, but someone who is married and who loves his wife. So if we told them, let's try to stillman the answer they would give. If we say, hey guys, if your morality, you take it seriously, here is your wife, you love each other, but then if a useless bum, if a horrible person, if a drunkard claims that, you know, I feel lonely, so I need a wife, and because I am a person who has nothing, I live in the streets, you should give me your wife, and the wife you should consent because I am in need. Is there any single person in the world who would say, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. This is what altruism indeed demands of us"? So, what would the ethical defender of altruism claim in this hypothetical scenario? Because there's no way he could say, "Oh yes, take my wife. You need her more."
He would say, we don't have to go to extremes. In other words, we don't have to be that consistent. And it doesn't fit our intuitions. This is something that has taken over philosophy. We have moral intuitions, which strangely happen to be 100% in accord with what mommy and daddy told you when you were 5 and 6 years old. Amazing, isn't it? The concordance. So their emotions answer you, not their reason. There is no reason to answer. And no one has ever attempted to do that. There is one philosopher who attempted to refute Ayn Rand's positive case. It was Robert Nozick of Harvard, and he wrote a criticism of the Randian argument, as he called it, which got it very wrong, and I wrote him in answer, and he said, why don't you publish it somewhere? He actually liked Atlas Shrugged, but he thought the argument for why the good is that rational egoism, rational selfishness didn't work. Life is a standard of value didn't work, he thought. It does, but he had the wrong epistemology. So I did publish it maybe 30 years after Robert Nozick's death in the Ayn Rand Society. I believe you can go there. If you search on the web, Harry Binswanger's answer to Robert Nozick on the Randian argument. You'll doubtless come up to it.
I've read
But
it
he's the only
somewhere,
one.
so it's probably somewhere out there. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the only one who's attempted. They attempt to deal with other issues, but they're afraid to touch altruism as a morality of death because it's too clear. You look at Mother Teresa, pretty damn altruistic, and that's a living death that she lived. That's not something that you want your son or daughter to go. Why don't you go to the slums of Calcutta and wash people's feet? You would really be a good person if you did that. So it's that people don't question it. Philosophers don't question it. I remember P.H. Noel Smith reading in college, a British ethicist who said, it's obvious that moral codes commend altruism. It's obvious. So we don't have to say anything in defense of it.
Actually, I have a question on this, Harry. This
Okay.
would be my second question. Where does altruism come from? Let's put it this way. So,
Hmm.
of course, it was codified by Comte. Of course, it is the essence of Christianity. But even reading objectivists, some of them characterize the societies of primordial tribal cannibals as altruistic societies. So if there is some altruism, let's say in primitive societies, is it an instinct, as some people would say? It's an intuition, they put it this way.
Mhm.
So why do you think that it is the default in various different societies? Not all of them. It's not the
Yeah.
default in ancient Athens, for example, or in ancient Rome, I think. But why in so many societies do we find this, quote, intuition towards altruism?
Well, let's take a moment to praise ancient Athens because it was inconceivable to the ancient Greeks, even to Plato, that that the good could be something other than your good. Plato put forward a totalitarian society which he justified on the grounds you'll be an integrated person. You'll be better off if you know your place in society and stick to it. So they had this question, how can a person act against the good? Because the good is your good. Why would you act to hurt yourself? It's just inconceivable. So there have been societies, and ancient Greece was one, and the revolutionary period in the US was another, where people were pretty egoistic, and they were great societies. But if you ask me where it comes from secondhand living. This is the theme of altruism. It comes from the psychology of dependence. People always think of themselves not as the sacrificer, but as the receiver of sacrifices. Right?
Okay,
I
that makes
want
sense.
people to take care of me. Yes, we're all our brother's keeper, and I'm going to be kept. I don't have anything that I would care about giving up. So I've got a get out of jail free card, as you put it. I can count on my fellow man to take care of me. And it's not just it's not just money and food. He will tell me what to do. That's the root of it. And that's the theme of the Fountainhead, really, is that the second hander, as she calls it, preaches altruism because it makes sense to his metaphysics. If he were left alone, he couldn't survive because he has turned his mind over to the mob. So he needs them and he hopes they need him.
And one last question, Harry, which is a genuine question, a very difficult one. Let's say someone has read every essay of Ayn Rand, of the objectivist canon about altruism. He can make the argument why it is bad. And yet, how does one psychologically get rid of altruism? Let's say we spent, some of us, 30, 40 years before we discovered Ayn Rand, and the remnants inside us of this idea that your whole life should be, sacrifice for this, for that. How does one get rid of this, even when you have read Atlas Shrugged and all the
Yeah.
non-fiction. How do you actually get rid of this burden which puts all this shadow over your life?
Well, unfortunately, my wife, who's spent a large amount of her life answering that question, is not here. She's in Maine right now. But the essence of it is that you turn your mind to what you want, to your values and your goals, and ask, is this what makes my life rewarding? And why would I think that serving others and giving up things would make for a life I'd want to live? But basically, it's a focus on the positive and realizing, oh, that's just what I grew up with. It's a default position that was drummed into me and I didn't resist it. So that's a glib answer to a very big question. And it's the best I can do.
It's easier said than done, but the answer makes sense. And I will keep what you said. Focus on some positive. Notice that
Mhm.
altruism does not involve any such element. If it did involve such element, focusing on the positive, the heroes who would be celebrating would be the pharmaceutical companies that help us get rid of diseases, or even on the point of charity, someone like Bill Gates. Instead, they do not celebrate Bill Gates, who he made a lot of money for himself and also helped others. They celebrate someone who did not help in real terms anyone, but suffered herself. So their point of reference is not life overcoming suffering. Their point of reference is suffering, and at the end of the
Is
day,
suffering.
yeah,
Yeah.
not life. And why should we accept that? I mean, this morality literally makes you a slave. Literally, your time, your body, your energy, everything, the product of your labor should belong to someone else. If we fought literal wars, actual wars, to fight slavery, why do we accept it as a morality? And
Oh,
I'll
yeah,
I'll
good
leave us
point.
with this.
Well, wait, I have another point. You keyed it in my mind. People say, people, they say, well, altruism's all right, it just should be voluntary. What I'm against is the government forcibly making you be altruistic. You should be altruistic, but it has meaning only if it's voluntary. And that misses the point completely because if altruism is true, you are stealing the property of the needy by keeping it for yourself. The government taking your money in taxes and giving it to the needy is returning property to its proper owner. Ownership is a moral concept. Ownership under egoism comes from creation. You create value, you own that value. But under altruism, it comes from non creation. So they own your wealth. Anyone who has less than you owns what you have above them. And boy, there are people out there who have a lot less than you in the world, a lot less than you. So when you say altruism is literal slavery, it is. They you are in their debt. It's just as if you had borrowed money from them and had refused to pay it back. The government has to use force to make you honor your debt. And if they own the products of your labor because they need it, then the government is restoring, by taking your wealth from you, is restoring it to its proper owners. So there's no such thing as, oh, altruism is fine if it's voluntary. The very definition of voluntary involves the idea of rights and property ownership. And there is only ownership by need in under altruism.
I think, Harry, this is such an important topic that requires a whole show, not just a postscript on a show, because this is the libertarian defense, in a way, of voluntary altruism. They say altruism is good, just not done by the government. So let's put a pin on it. Maybe next episode, if nothing very important happens during the week in terms of current affairs, or at some point, we should make a whole episode because this is very important, I think.
Yep. Thank you, Nikos.
On that happy note, many thanks to our audience, many thanks to you, Harry, and see you next week.
See you next week.